going to go ahead and get started. And one new thing you're going to see this week is that I'm scratching our song. Not because we don't enjoy it, but it's just not great for the digital platform. Although Brooke has a lovely voice, it's very hard for us to sing in unison. So that's one part we're going to be scrapping this week. But we're going to go ahead and get started with our invocation. So Jan, can I go ahead and give you the floor to get us started, please?
All right, let's pray. Gracious Lord, we give you thanks for this day, and we give you thanks that you just fill our minds and inspire our hearts with ideas for action, and that you've given us an opportunity to act through our Rotary Club. So please use us in all that we say and do, and especially use us as we act together to serve this community and your world. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And Justin, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. We're suspending the song for now. We don't have any new birthdays than the ones we announced last week and the Rotary anniversaries we announced last week. We do have a big club event that's coming up on May 26th. And I don't know if y'all have looked at our Club Runner page, but it should be posted there. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see. Hold on here. All right, here it is, May 26th. Kingsville Rotary is celebrating the 97th birthday, and we're gonna do it by hosting a virtual trivia night. It'll be a happy hour, a membership mixer. We're inviting everybody to come and to bring their friends and family to participate in movie trivia. So I will be hosting that game. I have a lot of questions here. It wouldn't be fair for me to participate because I've already memorized a lot of the questions and answers. So, but we'll divide up into teams and we'll have a really good time. So it should last about an hour. And I'll send out the Zoom link so that everybody can share it, and then we'll have a good time with it. Some other events that we have going on are, like Justin said, the district events. We also have a makeup meeting session. I know that it's been difficult for people adapting to the situation and the program, but we're going to be allowing makeup meetings by viewing our YouTube videos online, and there is a form that you can complete that would allow you to watch that whole video and then say, hey, I did a makeup, and Brenda will go ahead and count that attendance toward your time. What else do we have going on? We're going to start preparing for next year. I know it's a little early, but I'm thinking about putting together a kind of a final strategic planning meeting, just going to finish up, get those last bit of goals in if we have anything outstanding, but also getting the individuals that are coming into directorship a chance to ask questions and have a really smooth transition into their new positions. So that will be, I'm thinking about planning it near our next board meeting. If anybody has any question, wants to participate in that, I really would like to have as many people as we can. It'll be nice back and forth questions, answers type session. And with that being said, I will turn it over to Justin. Justin, will you introduce our guest speaker, please?
Yes, thank you, Ruth. And so if some of you are unaware that we're in a little bit of weird times right now, and the economy is doing some crazy things, if some of you have noticed. And so we wanted to get an insider's perspective on how all of these things work together and what it's doing to the banking industry, and particularly a good local bank. And so we looked far and wide for someone in our membership that might have some information on that. And we came on Brad Womack. And I'm not sure if anybody doesn't know Brad, but I believe he was one of the founding fathers of Kleberg Bank. Maybe I've misread the information there. But with that, Brad, would you like to give us all of the information that you have about banking?
Sure. Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for asking for participation. I would say that around February 15th, maybe even a little earlier, our bank started initiating our incident response plan for business continuity in sort of preparation, hoping that it wouldn't happen, but in preparation of potential pandemic conditions. As we all know, sometime, depending on when you think it really went into effect, sometime in late March, it was truly considered to be pandemic for COVID-19. So our bank was about 5 weeks ahead of the curve on preparing for such things. And so so we had a plan in place, and what we had to do was we essentially shut down all of our lobby facilities effective late March, about March 26th. But moved all of our services to either online, over the phone, or to our drive-in facilities. Here in Kingsville, we've got the best drive-in facility probably in our network. Our other two branches in Corpus, their drive facilities are kind of connected to their main branch, so it causes a lot of confusion for customers. But for us, it's a lot easier to direct people to our West King facility. In figuring this out, we've come across a lot of things. We found out that people like to visit. JD and I were talking about this. They like to visit their banker or their teller or their new accounts rep or whoever it is. And so we've been missing that, honestly, that part of the equation we've been missing. But from a general banking perspective, we feel like we've been able to provide all of the normal business lines and business traffic that we normally would, just in a different format. I think there's things coming on the chat, so I want to make sure I can see and we pull that up here. Crystal, I'll go ahead and answer your question right now so I don't forget. The answer is yes. We are doing things by appointment. She asked about the coin machine. We actually just had someone in yesterday from one of the schools doing a coin deposit. So yes, we are making our lobby available for specific things like safe deposit box entry or for special purposes using the coin machine. Right when so I'm going to kind of transition a little bit. Right when we got to that sort of level of preparedness, along with everybody else, the SBA decided, and the U.S. Treasury and the Trump administration all got together and decided they were going to fast track the CARES Act into existence. And then they said the SBA would have 2 weeks to figure it out. And then they gave them 5 days. And so as you can imagine, our chief credit officer said to us, he said, it's kind of like flying an airplane while you're still building it. And they're literally still building it today as we've already been through the process. And I thought it might be interesting to share a little bit about what the SBA PPP program was. And PPP is a Paycheck Protection Program. Essentially, it was initially about a $300 billion allotment from the U.S. Treasury through the SBA to small businesses, but fully functionally distributed by the banking industry. Community banks, regional banks, and the money center banks were all equally tapped, as well as some other non-bank lenders as well were allowed to participate after going through a certification process. And essentially, businesses, in the first wave, businesses with W-2 employees were allowed to apply for essentially 10 weeks of payroll protection, with the idea that in the future, they'd use 8 weeks for payroll, and that other 2 week, the gap could be used for things like mortgage interest, utilities, rent, et cetera. And so looking at some of the questions, J.D. asked, a lot of banks are caught off guard, and you're right. We were caught off guard too. Well, I won't lie. We had to scramble pretty hard. We put together a task force. I participated on that with our chief credit officer, one of our senior lenders from Corpus, and a couple of our key credit analysts. We devised a plan to see how quickly we could mobilize everyone together. And then we basically took about 98% of our attention in the loan side of the bank and put it squarely on this process to support small business. As of yesterday, to answer Jan's question, we've completed and funded over 360 loans. And I'll talk about the amounts and jobs in just a minute. In a normal year, from a commercial loan perspective, we probably process between 75 and 80 loans in a year. And so in less than a month, we processed about 4 times our normal average for what we would do in a year. In that 360 loans, we funded over $37 million to the local economies of Kingsville, Corpus, and the surrounding areas. And at the last estimate, because this is part of the requirement for application, we had supported about 5,500 local jobs. And our reach probably extends a little into the San Antonio area, but probably 95% of that is in either Kingsville, Corpus, Alice, or one of the other smaller surrounding areas. Interestingly enough, after phase 1, we thought there was only going to be one phase, but after phase 1, an additional $300 billion was funded into this program. And we picked up where we left off on phase 1 in making loans for phase 2. I will tell you that anyone on this call or anyone in your related circles who you think would have been a good candidate for an SBA PPP loan, but they did not apply or they think the money's out, there actually is still money left. And we have technically taken down our public application because the demand is weakened. But if you know someone who's in need and you think that their business would be well supported, have them contact me directly, and I'll see if there's something we can do to support them through this time. Interestingly enough, those small businesses that it was pretty easy to process were businesses that had normal W-2 employees. There are processes and procedures in place for self-employed, independent contractors, people that run sub-S corporations. They're not as well publicized, but we do have access to the documentation to help people if they're interested in that type of a loan. So that's taken the banking world by storm. We probably took our first application in early April, funded our first loan by the 21st of April, and we've been processing loans probably 30 to 40 a day every day since. And we'll probably have another 30 to 40 loans that are in our pipeline. So expect getting to over 400 records before this is said and done. And the interesting part is while people have already received the money, been funded, been approved, the forgiveness process of this is literally still being written at the federal level. And so we're trying to help our customers guide through that, but we're also a little dependent on what SBA is doing. So we're not giving out long-term guidance yet on exactly how that would work. So Justin, good question. So what we've found out was we have different segments of our banking team that do many different things. And a lot of them can actually work from home very effectively. But we've found that even people who have access, my job kind of being one of those where as long as I have a computer, good internet, and maybe a little bit of quiet, I can work pretty effectively from anywhere. But a lot of people still want to come into the bank, still want to come into their job and work. And we've taken a lot of great precautions to provide social distancing. I have my door closed, which is very abnormal. Typically keep my door wide open all the time. But things that to maybe better answer Justin's question here, there's good things about that. We've learned how to use our distance technology. We use WebEx, which is very much like Zoom, just works on their platform better. We've been having meetings literally every single day. I set on 5 yesterday, video conference calls so that we could all see each other's faces and communicate better. The bad part is there's really in my mind, there's no substitute for true human interaction when you're in a normal work environment, getting in front of your colleagues or having lunch with them or something like that. So that's been the bad side. But I would tell you that our customers have picked up on remote banking, especially especially the ones where it suits them best, have really taken advantage of using the online techniques for remote deposit in some cases, or just for checking their balances. Because, our phone center last month, on any given month, takes about 10,000 calls. And last month they took 17,000 calls. So if you can imagine, the volume was through the roof there. So another question here. I don't have the exact numbers between Kingsville and Corpus, but I think out of the 37 million, I know of at least 12 million that was funded to the Kingsville area. Our Corpus branch is a little more commercial. We have a lot of consumer loans in Kingsville, which did not apply for that. But we put about $12 million back into our local economy here in the form of PPP loans. And it was at least 100, maybe 150 of the actual loans themselves. What percentage of your customers are using online banking? Well, the answer still is not enough. There's still some room for improvement there. We have about 18,000 registered users for online banking, and on a normal basis, about 8,500 are using, and I think the number peaked just over 10,000. So we saw, 15, 20% increase, but there's still room for improvement. I would tell you, probably everybody in this room uses a debit card or a credit card and probably logs into mobile banking or has at least once. A lot of our customers still don't do that. They still transact in cash, and so they come to the branch to pick up cash. Even people who don't have cars, and that's been a challenge for them. So we've had to do some special things to allow people to drive up to the facilities, or walk up to the facilities that are normally intended for drive up. And we've tried our best to take care of those, but I think we'll be happy once we know that it's safe to open our doors again. We've already actually started building that plan. We don't know when that day will be. We're sort of waiting on a little more information from the governor over the next couple of weeks to see where we're going in this phased in approach and to see where that plays in. But I'll certainly am open to taking any other questions. I appreciate those are some good ones. Do I know of any businesses that have closed their doors permanently? I don't know of any specific businesses that have closed permanently. I do know of a few that have basically said we're not going to reopen until we know that it's safe again. I know of others that have reduced staff significantly and are working feverishly to put plans back together to get back to full strength. And it's interesting, there's really two classes of businesses right now, ones that are pandemic friendly and ones that are not, and then some that are being adversely affected by the economic issues that are stemming from the pandemic. So for example, the difference between, say, maybe an accounting firm and a restaurant, there's some things that a lot of accounting firms could do potentially to continue business as usual with just a little less client interaction, where in restaurants and retail, obviously that face-to-face interaction, the continuous customer service is a key part of their business. But then there's other businesses, like whether it's travel or energy, that have been really adversely affected by the resulting economic impact of the stimulus. And I was going to read a couple of stats that were given to us through the Federal Reserve, but they're expecting in Texas that we'll see the worst sort of economic impact sometime during this month, between the months of May and June, with a recovery in the second half, obviously on the horizon, but that a peak of unemployment between 10 and 15%. And what that really means is we're starting to see some numbers creep up here now, but businesses that were able to use the SBA program, perhaps they could rehire some of their employees. But if we don't get back to normal here pretty quick, there'll probably be a second round of layoffs in some of these more service or economically impacted industries as well. Social distancing seems to be a thing. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question about,
Sure.
I was going to type it, but I started to and it got really long.
Okay, go ahead.
In regards to security and how this whole thing has impacted how y'all do business. I know like in my business, I'm sending a lot more things through email, you know, processing a lot of things through DocuSign. Are y'all willing to accept, you know, things in a different format that you normally would? And what precautions are you taking? And are you seeing a hike in, you know, these type of predators who would be trying to get that kind of information?
Certainly. Yeah. So cybersecurity is incredibly important on a regular basis, but certainly in any time there's an incident, whether it's pandemic, hurricane, or anything else affecting the economy, cybersecurity criminals seem to be at their best. That's their heyday when everyone else is distracted. So yes, we as in our industry and specifically here at the bank are taking additional precaution. However, we have fully adopted DocuSign as a partner. We actually have a couple of DocuSign products. We have the standard e-signature that we've probably all seen for documents like signing for on a real estate contract, pretty typical. We also added an ID verification module to the e-sign where information has to be either scanned from the driver's license or matched exactly to information from the driver's license, which is helpful. And in addition, we also purchased a module called DocuSign Rooms. And DocuSign Rooms is a platform that is designed to have an exchange of information where customers can be asked to upload certain documents, they can read certain documents, and then we can flow back and forth in a secure portal where they've got to have a username and a password instead of using email. And then we've seen our usage of secure email go up exponentially. I think every email I've sent out in the last 2 weeks has gone to secure for some reason or another, because we're doing more via email than we normally ever would, because we're used to talking to our customers in person. So to kind of circle back on that long answer, the answer is yes. And I would encourage everyone to be especially diligent during this time. If you're getting communication from anybody in your financial circles, to make sure that you're sending things securely. And if you don't know how to do that, ask them, because typically they're required to have a secure portal to provide you. We have multiple ways to do it ourselves. So if that's something that's something that should be important to you. But if you're not knowing and you just send out an email, it will just go unencrypted from your Gmail or whatever. You just want to be sure you're taking the appropriate precautions there. So great question. Justin, I don't know the answer to that question. I know a study was being done on the lifespan of of COVID-19 when it comes in regards to currency. They started it in Europe, but our currency is made very differently so that we couldn't use their results. So I've not seen the final answer on that. I'm finding myself wanting to deal in less cash just in general, just because I think that cash is probably one of the dirtier things out there when we're not going through a pandemic, because we just don't know where it's been. And so if it's not necessary, I am advising people to use electronic payment methods where possible. Can't completely cut out cash. We all know that, but it is something to consider. And Janine, good question. So the PPP loans are actually really interesting. They're built with a forgiveness feature that's forgivable essentially within after the initial 8-week period. But if whatever portion is not forgiven or whatever portion is not used for the purposes intended, those loans all have a very standard formatting, and it's their 1% interest rate for up to 24 months of repayment. And so for a small business who maybe their biggest expense isn't payroll and they needed to cover something else, if they had to spend that money, knowing that wouldn't be forgiven, they have a very favorable interest rate. And so how that was negotiated was, so since the banks are carrying the debt, the SBA is actually paying the banks an administrative fee that does not get passed to the customer. And so the interest rate to the customer is very low, and the SBA is picking up the administrative burden on the back end for the banks. Good question. And I'm not sure about the timeline. If you had anything specific, if you want to jump in there, but we are expecting information this week on the forgiveness plan, the forgiveness calculator, and all of those things. And our industry people are asking us to slam our congressmen and senators with requests to simplify, because the initial sort of, well, let me say this. There's been like 17 versions of the interim final rule for this, and the FAQs that go with it started at like 5, and now there's like 47 FAQs now, which are interpretations. So the promulgation of this law has been exponential and has changed over all these different intervals. And so we were posting the files on our website, and we just started posting the link because the file changed so frequently we couldn't keep up with it. So as far as timelines are concerned, we're hoping they'll tighten this thing up by the end of this current week so that we can start preparing our clients and our customers for the forgiveness phase that starts 8 weeks after the first loan is distributed. Anybody else have any questions? I like questions.
So what do you think is probably your best silver lining to the entire crisis at the industry level and even at the local bank level? You know, what's a positive unintended consequence that you see coming from this?
Sure. I think that, and this may be not an economic thing, but I'll get to that in a second. I think people, we personally here at the bank have found that our people are pretty strong, pretty determined, and that our customers are pretty reasonable. We've heard some horror stories from other regions. And so I think our demographic and the people that we serve in these communities have been very patient, also very supportive, and understanding that, you know, the concept of being in something together is real. And so I think from that perspective, if we can get through this, I feel like we could get through a lot of things in a better way. From an economic perspective, I'm concerned for people's livelihoods. I really am. But I believe that people in our area will work hard and won't take the easy route out, which makes me feel like we have a chance to be good. As we come out of this, we'll know what the real risks of pandemic are, and we'll maybe prepare differently going forward, and maybe probably change some habits, especially maybe from a savings perspective. And we're going to be rolling out some programs to help people save in the future for reasons like this when jobs may be jeopardized. I mean, Janine's got her hand up there, if that's what that means. Oh, she's muted.
Hold on.
Oh, there you are.
Oh,
You're on.
Yeah, I just didn't I didn't want to type a real long question, but
Yes.
I just, on a personal level, I was curious. I do know my savings, obviously the interest rate on that's been dropped as a result of all of this. And I'm wondering, is it a good time to refinance, say, any of your other loans? What would your recommendation be on that?
Sure. I talked to our head of real estate mortgage, about 3 days ago, and she said that the rates on refinance or on new home purchases are phenomenally low right now. The difference, and then there's two questions that have come across. Some people are thinking now's a good time to maybe get some equity out of their house, maybe pay off some other debts, consolidate. We're not recommending that because those rates are not good. Those rates are actually a lot higher than they normally are. And this just has to do with the credit risk cycle, downward pressure on jobs. But if you've got your current, first lien mortgage loan, now's a good time to at least take a look and see if there's something. I think she told me rates were as low as 3.37 recently. So if your rate's in over 4.5, it's probably a good time to take a look.
Okay.
If anybody needs any help in that, I can route you to the right person. Cars too. I was reading online that the auto companies want to sell you a car so bad they give you 0% for 84 months. So if you're in the market for a new car and that seems like the right stimulus for you, it's not a bad time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. thank you for your nice comments too. I agree. Eva does a lot of great things for us. Thank you.
So driving around town in the area, I see a lot of new home construction. Are you noticing a lot of that kind of activity through the bank, or is it just residual from back in February where things were normal?
It's really more of the latter there. A lot of the home building is done on a speculative basis, and a lot of those projects were already started. I will tell you though, we are seeing that the supply of homes is relatively low. There are more buyers than sellers right now. And shameless plug for any of the real estate people out there, but if you were going to sell your house, if you wanted to, if you were going to move or you wanted to upgrade or downgrade, now's not a bad time for a number of reasons. One, Janine just brought it up. Rates are low, so that's good for buyers. And then for some reason in our market, there's just an unbalance. There's more demand than there is supply, which gives opportunities to those who are interested in selling to negotiate where they maybe have a little bit of the upper hand. So that's something to at least take a look at.
So for someone like me who is starting off on the journey of home building, are you seeing, additional roadblocks for those types of people who are starting during this time? Are you seeing where it's hard to find the builders to do the work? It's hard to find the surveyors and appraisers and all the people that are usually very easy and motivated to get going. Are you seeing delays caused from this?
A little bit, but only because we don't have a multitude of those folks here in Kingsville, and a lot of our business relies on people coming from out of the area to support the demand. And so we're not seeing the normal appraisers from Corpus coming here quickly because they've got enough demand to stay local and not have to drive and travel and those types of things. And so, yeah, we're seeing some delays on those ancillary services. But loan processes seem to be running at a pretty normal rate. Well-qualified buyers aren't having problems. Anything that's on the fringes where maybe they're kind of qualified and in a great economy, the deal pushes through, those types of deals are getting slowed down. A lot of that pressure comes from the upstream where they're looking at the big macroeconomic factors that are already sort of wreaking havoc up in the East Coast and on parts of the more densely populated parts of the country where they got hit really hard on COVID-19. And so those pressures are pushing down into our environments as well, because we have to work through those channels. But I think most of the local delays would be mostly based on just availability of those skilled laborers.
Do you have any more questions?
Y'all let me talk for way too long.
No. Well, all the information was very useful. None of it was just banking jargon.
and I mean that we really have publicly we had to draw a line somewhere on our PPP program, and we were getting like one application a day, and we've got to have a whole team dedicated to knocking it out. But if you have people who in your circles who did not apply because they thought maybe it ran out or they thought they didn't qualify, send them our way and let me at least talk to them and see if we can't help them. We're going to squeeze in as many as we can here towards the bitter end, especially if they're businesses that are important to Kingsville, maybe just haven't had time. They've been trying to survive or whatever it might be. So I don't know, Janine, maybe you're seeing some people out there who maybe should have, but didn't. We might.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Brad. I really appreciate. Oh, what was that?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very good program. I enjoyed it. Let's see. The last thing on our list is to do our random spin wheel for our Paul Harris weekly drawing winner. Let's see if we have somebody new. Maria Martinez, and the second one Brenda. Both of those are good for our list. No duplicates. Okay. All right, I'll open it to any happy dollar announcements. If anybody has any, raise your hand and let us know. Jadine, you always save this quiet, silent moment of ours. What do you got for?
Sure. If you're just needing more Rotary, I've been pushing it hard on the bulletins, and she's going to be a speaker June 2nd. So the Rotarian Action Group for Peace. If you don't know what a Rotarian Action Group is, it's just a group of Rotarians that meet unofficially, and they're kind of given the stamp. I guess it's official. It's given the stamp of approval from Rotary International, and you can have Rotarian action groups for landmines in Cambodia just as easy as you can have Rotarian for skiing. They have a Rotarian action group for lawyers, and I avoid them, which is why I'm a member. And so is our club for Rotarian Action Group for Peace. And each Friday, they've been doing kind of like what we have, and they've been interviewing folks from around the world, people that are putting drops in the mouths of kids, people that are building latrines in India so the girls can go to school. And it's been really interesting. So check it out. It's at 4 p.m. on Friday, and the lady that hosts it will be our speaker on June 2nd as well. So check it out.
Janine, you have one?
Yeah, I was just, am I muted or?
You're good.
You're good.
Okay. I was just going to remind everybody that we do have that testing going on today and tomorrow still at the remote testing site out at Kleberg Park. It's completely free. If you or anyone you know is interested or may have a symptom or two, the only thing they ask is if multiple household members are going to go. They only want one person per household if there's no symptoms. I will say right now they do plan to still come out a couple additional times, but that's still a work in progress, could change depending on as hotspots pop up. But to schedule that appointment, you could make same day appointments today. It's 512-883-2400, and we do have all of that on the City of Kingsville and Kingsville Visitor Center page. So if you know anyone that feels like they need a test, please share that info.
Thank you, Janine. You have a question, Justin?
I have a happy dollar announcement.
All right.
So we kind of skipped over our guest portion of the meeting, but I would like to officially introduce Cynthia Alvarado Stinson. She is a fairly new Rotarian, and she belongs to the Morning Club. That's right, the other Rotary Club of Kingsville. And she was kind enough to join us today for lunch. And so I just wanted to give a round of applause to Cynthia for joining us today.
Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed our program. You're definitely welcome back anytime you're free at lunchtime while we're doing virtual meetings, or when we eventually get back to the Cherry Tree Room.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have a little happy dollar announcement. It's kind of funny, but I have a cold. It's been verified. I have only a cold, so that's a happy dollar announcement to have.
That's the only time it's happening.
Exactly. I had my COVID swab test was negative, and my finger prick antibody test was also negative. So all of the weird symptoms I've been having is the common cold.
Good.
Ruth, I have one. So we're talking about mortgages and houses and things. And so I sold my house, which was something that I wanted to do. Not because I'm moving, but because I, like Ruth, have a goal of building a house here in the next 12 months or so. But in the interim, I needed to sell my house and then start planning, because I don't like to get too far ahead of myself. And as luck would have it, the house that I essentially grew up in, where my grandmother lived, was available to rent, and I got to move into that house. And so my family's super excited to kind of relive some of the memories that I got to live as a child and put our own spin on it. So cool.
That's awesome. That's so much fun.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Instead of cramming into an apartment or something. So we're very excited.
Well, good luck with the move. I know how stressful that can be.
We just finished, thank God. I couldn't talk about it during the move because it was just a nightmare. We waited until afterwards to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, do you have any other happy dollar announcements? I'm glad to have so many this week. Okay, well then with that, we'll close out the meeting with the four-way test. So if you'll please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth?
The truth?
Is it fair
Is it
to all
fair to all
concerned?
concerned?
Will it build
Will it build
goodwill
goodwill and better
friendships?
friendships?
Will
Will
it
it
be
be
beneficial
to all
concerned? Thank you all, and we will see y'all next week. Anybody that wants to stick around and talk, you're more than welcome. Next week, we'll have the city manager, Mark McLaughlin, will be our guest speaker. So show up and ask some good questions, and we'll see you all soon.
Not actually guest speaker. He's our speaker.
Oh,
he is our member.
our speaker because he is now a Rotarian. I have just not
Yeah.
put him into the system because my Rotary folder is being held captive at the Kleberg Bank building.
And
So,
don't forget, Saturday morning at 8:15 to 9 is the part 3 Rotary District Conference of our storytelling login. You have an email of where to register and all that. And it's free, but you must register. And we look forward to seeing you there.
thanks, Justin. Bye, everybody. Bye, Brenda. I
Bye,
hope
all.
things get better for
Bye,
you,
Bye,
Brenda.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, Brooke. Bye, Danny, the meerkats.
Justin, did Justin go?
He did, but maybe I can help. What do you have a question?
Well, thanks, Ruth. I am wondering I haven't been able to track down another RLI 1 training.
Okay.
The couple that have been done recently have been on Wednesdays, which don't work for me.
Okay.
So I was wondering if they're,
When the next one's scheduled?
when the next one scheduled would be, yeah,
Okay, I can look that up. It's RLI 1 or 2?
1.
1. Okay. I will find out and I will send you an email.
I appreciate
If
that.
if they have a link set up, I'll send you the registration. If not, I'll send you just whatever information I find.
Ruth, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Have a good day, Jan.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye, Richard.